Hey everyone, Dan here. We are in the pre-market on Tuesday, April 6th, and wanted to do something a little different today. So I often, if I'm able to be pretty active during the trading day, I will do some analysis in the pre-market, see what happened during the trading session the previous day, and then how that plays into what's happening in the pre-market today, and then I'll sort of formulate a trading plan, or at least some price zones to look at for dip buys, for cut losses, for bounce zones, for resistance points, that sort of thing. So I selected out 6 stocks that I'm actually watching or actively trading, and wanted to basically take you through that pre-market process. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come back toward the end of the trading day, and we'll see how those levels played out. If you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And please feel free to share these wherever you share things. That also helps get the word out and sort of get some new eyes on the channel. Okay, so Palantir, I'm watching really closely. I currently have a position in Palantir, or I guess a few positions. So that's why there's a lot of lines already on the chart. What I'll do is I'll put my prices for Palantir in a certain color, so we can just focus on those colors for today. So this was yesterday. It was in this channel for a while and left, and now did a lot of consolidating after hours, and then in the pre-market it's continuing to kind of build off of this 23-26 low. And what I'm going to hope is happening on the bullish side here is that maybe we're putting in a little bit of a trend line that will hold. We'll see. It's very, very much in its infancy here, and that's a pretty steep trend line. But if we know anything about Palantir, we know that it can move. So we won't be too fearful about steepness. Let's put all of Palantir's stuff in white, so we'll know that that's what we charted today. So that's what I'm going to be looking for on that side. The thing that kind of concerns me here already is, let me just get my rectangle here, is all of this topping out and not being able to break through this zone is not making me super happy at the moment. So in an ideal world, building off of these other support zones that I've identified, 2355, 2371, that sort of thing, to get us up and over this white box, and hopefully that continues us on this trendline support. My hope for today would be that we can get back to that 2428, which is a pretty common zone for Palantir to come back to, whether it's coming from above that price or from below that price. So that's going to be my main initial target for today. So we'll sort of indicate that by throwing another white rectangle in there. So we know that we talked about that this morning when we review it later today. Other than that, a lot of this price activity is really getting caught up in prices that we've already charted, which is good because that means that our original analysis is holding up pretty solid. I would look for really strong support in this area, and really strong support in this area as the day goes on. So, Palantir and a lot of the stocks that we're going to talk about are going to have a tendency to have this sort of slingshot effect where they start to move strongly in one direction during the initial half hour to an hour of the trading day, and then they start to build back in the opposite direction as the day progresses. That, of course, is not always a hard and fast rule, but it is a common theme if you go back and look through that 9:30 to 10:30 hour, and then what happened until the 3 to 4 o'clock power hour. A lot of times there's retracements that happen in that, 4.5 hour gap? Whatever 10:30 until 3 is. To me, it can often be a really good sign if these high volatility, high volume stocks sell off at open, especially if they've built some steam in the pre-market. So if they've shown some upswing in the pre-market, sell off pretty strongly the first half an hour to an hour of market open, oftentimes you'll get that rebound effect, and you can play that for the rest of the day. Maybe get a cheap call option toward the bottom, or some shares. So that's what I'm going to be looking for from Palantir. Strong support down here, needs to get over this white box. Most ideal world, it's following this white trend line. My first target that I'm hoping that it can get to is that 24.28, and then we could sort of see from there. If it does get some steam there, where I would next be looking would be, now I know these seem like small incremental changes, but I'm mostly looking at options trading, so the small changes can go a long way. I'd be looking for it to establish right along here at this 24.50, and if it can establish support there, then we could be off to the races, which is what I've really been waiting for quite some time from Palantir, for it to really have this explosive day, sort of like an 8-10% day, something like that. Up, not down. So, all right, let's move on to GameStop before we just run out of time in the pre-market here. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. So what I'll maybe be looking for in GameStop, if it can hold this. So we have this longer trend line here. Oh, sorry about that. Longer trend line here, and then it's maybe going to be running into this in the very first hour and a half or so of trading. So if it stays in that flag area, I'd be interested to see what it does when it leaves there. I would say during the pre-markets, it has, I guess in the after hours and pre-market, it has built some pretty good support here, but just remember, if it gets stuck under that, it's going to become really good resistance, which if you're long is, that's when you start to worry if something gets stuck under really strong resistance, it's going to be able to break through. All right, so flagging pattern, strong support here. This 184 is still holding strong support here, so I look for that to be maybe a good dip buying opportunity if it gets down there, And then from yesterday's action, I would look at also maybe another good dip buy zone. I should just make this a rectangle because I think it's a little bit bigger of an area. Sort of a dip buy potential, and from here down to about there. And if it falls too much below, say 180, and it's having a hard time recovering, that would give me some cause for concern. But otherwise, I'd be looking for it to either get caught under this downtrend and push itself down toward that 184 during the day, or look for it to build support from this uptrend and work itself up over 190 into like the mid 190s by close. But it would be hard for it to hold that trend the entire day, but with something like GameStop, not impossible for sure. All right, AMC, there should be some good support here, and building off of all of this dip buying, or all this buying pressure that we saw in those areas yesterday, and then continuing on through the pre-markets. Might be another little layer of support that you could look at here. So a couple of support zones where you could maybe sort of temper any any tendency to freak out as something is seemingly selling off. That's it's always good to have. So my first zone would be for it to get some support at this 1062. I think if it can build off of there, that'll be a promising sign. I do think that this area could be a little bit tricky for it. I'd want to see it really get over and establish support on top of this white box. And if that can happen, then I think there's a good chance that we're heading to here, and then we can head up right about to here, which would get us back into the 11s. and would give us the opportunity to maybe plot out a bigger day. But at the price that it's currently at, a 10% move is just about $1.50. So even getting into the 11s would be a good percentage gain for today. Can only be so greedy. But no, I mean, as the day goes on, if it does establish those levels, all you do is you continue to chart and take into account still like this, most recent price activity plus what's happened during the trading day, and then you plot your course upward, or you plot your support zones downward, so that, like I said, that's a very real thing. Like that's one way to think about how you don't end up panic selling, is you plot your support during the day and you sort of make your plan and stick to your plan, but you take into account sort of the most recent relevant information. All right, so CCIV is not looking phenomenal. I think sort of best case scenario here is it needs to hold this. And CCIV, given kind of what's happened in the pre-market, this would be one that I'd be looking for it to not push down further at open and sort of slingshot up. I would be looking for it to potentially slingshot up at open and then maybe stabilize and then be able to build again toward the end of the day. But that's going to be my bullish hope. It's going to have some sticky points probably around here. Maybe it's going to come fill this little gap here, which would be not like the biggest price move ever, but sometimes those things just give it enough momentum that people start to pile on, or some big buying pressure comes in. So could also be another little gap here that's needs to be filled. So that would give it a couple of areas to look for. And so let's put that here. This would be sort of my initial first area to look at for potentially like a little take profit if you wanted like a quick scalp kind of a thing. But if it can build support off of there, then we could plot our course up, looking for it to change this 2344 from resistance to support. And then I think we could be pretty good actually until this area here. I don't know that 2359 will offer much resistance today, but we'll see. And then, yeah, probably again toward that $24 mark. So, that's potentially how we could get to 24 today, and maybe even pretty quickly today. So we'll see. But yeah, CCIVs, if it pushes down, much further at open, that's going to be a pretty tough one to rebound because it already had so much selling pressure yesterday and hasn't really done anything that looks bullish in the pre-market. Space, so I already see like a bunch of topping out here. So this will be an area that I'll say, if it can get some real support here, that'll be a good sign for making another bullish push. I would really look for it to definitely hold this support level. That'd be the one that would be sort of really important to me. And then there should be another one like in this range here that would give you a little bit of like a, hey, it should hold this, and if it doesn't, it should definitely bounce. So if you're looking for a bounce dip buy, that 29.24 might provide you that. But I wouldn't be shy about potentially dip buying this little mini zone here if it comes down. So potentially some resistance there, but if we get support there, then I think we could have quite a bit of room to run just based on how hefty and quick the sell-off was yesterday. So we might sort of show a recovery as quickly as we saw the sell-off. A way that could get us there would be, if this sort of not too crazy of a trend line continues to be held by space. that could at least get us up closer to 30 by the end of the day. But I think that space is probably much more apt to move more rapidly than that. So especially toward open here. But those are my initial targets I'll be looking for in space. And then Mara is holding up really, really well. I would be looking for it to hold like this as support if it can get over it. I think it's going to have a lot of struggle around the 60 mark. So like this doesn't surprise me. I actually closed out my position around 57 yesterday, I think, something like that, 56, 57, during like one of these peaks. And so, because I thought it was going to kind of struggle during 60, and Mara has such a frequent tendency to have these big sell-offs and then big run-ups and stuff like that. I figured it would be a good opportunity to buy after a big push down and kind of ride a wave back up. So it's not that I'm kind of long-term bearish on it. I'm pretty bullish on it. But it's more so that, I try to not be greedy and kind of take the profit when it's there, and then and then look for like future dip buying opportunities. So these would be like my first ones to look for today. A really good dip buy zone for me would actually look like there, like in the 53s. And if it continues down from there, my next big dip buy area that I'd be pretty pleased with would be, I'm just going to make this a rectangle because I think it's a little bit of a better representation as a box, would be if I can get it from this 49 up to about 50. It's about $1 range there. Would be my ideal dip zone, and Mara could definitely move down $6 or $7 today. That could totally happen. I'm not saying that it will, but that's not out of the question. But yep, I'd look for initial sort of bumps here, potential dip buy opportunity here, and it's going to have some stickiness as it moves up here toward 60 through the 57s. All right, well, market is open, so I'm going to go play the game, and we'll check in after the market closes, and that's when I'll wrap up this video, and you'll see it all as one thing. So, Mara's already bouncing off of this zone, so that could be a good sign of strength. We'll see what it does when it hits this resistance point, though, because it might immediately start getting battered around from this 56 to 57. So, all right, I will see you all shortly. Alright everyone, here we are after hours on Tuesday, April 6th. Want to take a look at what we had charted this morning and how it held up today. Let's kick things off with Palantir. We'll go in the same order that we did this morning. So Palantir, not surprisingly, wasn't able to hold this uptrend line. It really quickly sold off, came down, actually caught itself on this 2289, which we had plotted in our longer term chart. So good to see that is holding up, and then formed itself into this channel after bouncing off of this area that we had plotted this morning, this 2327, and now is batting itself around in this purple channel, which to me, channels are fine. I am of course a little disappointed in Palantir. It did the worst scenario of all the things that we had laid out this morning for any of the bulls anyway, was it came down all the way down here and basically filled this gap that it had left behind, and then caught even a little bit more downside because of the momentum of being pulled down that far that quickly. So I mean, luckily it's starting to make some higher lows, but to me this was not a very exciting day for Palantir. I really think in the coming days it needs one of these big like 8 to 12% up days in order to get its mojo back and just kind of get systematically moving in the right direction again. GameStop spent most of the day in this area that we had identified this morning as like a strong support zone. Late in the day started to fall through it a little bit, but quickly came back up to it. So, strong area here. It obviously wasn't able to follow this uptrend. It got mostly suppressed underneath this downtrend that we had plotted and is still sitting there during after hours. It did make a run up into the 190s, which we had mentioned this morning, but you know, it couldn't maintain that 189 support level and quickly lost it. Tried to catch itself at 187, which we had plotted this morning, and then ultimately settled into this support zone. Luckily, it didn't get all the way down to this lower support area, so it still has that to kind of like act as an additional cushion if needed. But you know, kind of a boringish day by GameStop standards, and you know, we'll see what the coming days bring. This was a pretty great run yesterday, so you can only ask for so many days in a row. AMC spent about half the day in this channel here, which was, you know, looking good after it had gotten beat down pretty hard this morning, but it has since fallen out of that channel, and you know, basically for our initial support zones this morning, it really wasn't able to hold those at all. Wasn't even able to come up and test this area at all to see if it would, you know, continue to top out there. So right now it's holding pretty tight to that 1009 zone that we had charted in the longer time frame chart. So, you know, we'll see if it can build any momentum off that. You know, my biggest bullish hope at the moment would be it bounces off there again and starts to hug the bottom bound of this purple channel and work itself back up. But yeah, AMC, a little bit of a downer day as well. CCIV had a crazy day. So CCIV, you know, if we look at where we were plotting this morning, it established off of this white area, immediately started pressuring this 2320, established that as support, and then very quickly blew through a couple of resistance levels and smacked its head against that 2344, tried that a couple of times, came all the way back down to the 2320, which we had plotted, built off of that again, and then it hit this lower resistance zone, and then got pushed down even further to our initial lowest support side, you know, and then it caught this huge upswing where it blew through everything. But this is the advantage to still keeping your charts intact even after a stock has blown through it. So it blew through it all the way up to here, but then when it came back down, where did it come back down to? To this white box that we had plotted this morning, and it bounced. So that is one of those times, you know, I mentioned this morning, it gives you an opportunity to not panic sell. That's one of those times where you know it's coming into that area that you had plotted before, so you want to trust your chart, and you know, that gives you an opportunity to basically say, I'm going to see if it bounces here or if it falls through that level. And if it falls through that level, then I might think about cutting my losses or taking my profits, whichever it may be. But since it bounces, you know, it gives you an opportunity to stay in the play. Space had a really good day in my opinion because it just kept this like slow, steady uptrend. So it pushed right off of this trend line that we had drawn in this morning and pushed itself really, really quickly up to that 3048 level that we had plotted and pulled back a little bit, but didn't pull back anywhere near that 2976 and immediately started testing it again. Established it as support, lost it, tried to establish it as support again, and now it had tested it here toward the end of the day, so maybe it has a support level there now. In any case, it spent the entire day basically in this purple channel, and so that's a really good sign. That gives a lot of fluctuation to play off of intraday, and is really exciting as we look to the days ahead, especially if we continue to hold that channel or continue to establish channels in general, which Space is typically really good at establishing channels and holding them for a period of time long enough to play them. Mara almost did the really exciting thing, which, you know, this morning we had said, you know, here's all the support zones, and if it falls through all these support zones, we might catch it here for like a really big, good dip buy in the $49 to $50 area. It didn't quite come down there. It spent much of the day in this channel, which is a down channel, but it's mostly consolidating, moving pretty sideways in that area. Now it's popped itself out, so I don't know if we'll get this super exciting dip buy in the near future, though maybe. But you know, my idea with this dip buy was basically I think Mara is going to test this $58 level again, if not higher. And so I thought, you know, if you can catch it here and then just hold it for a few days while it works its way back into the high 50s, that still gives you about $10 of upside on a stock that you bought for under $50. So it's a good percentage swing in a short period of time. So I'm still going to be looking for that, but I'm mostly going to be interested to see if it just continues to consolidate here, and then where the price is going to move after the consolidation period has ceased, because it's a big mover on the upside and it's a big mover on the downside. So I'll be interested to see which way this one shakes out and try to catch it. Because if you can catch them, I mean, these are really profound swings that can give you good percentage gains intraday or even intra-week. All right, well, I hope no matter what you traded today that it was an enjoyable one, a profitable one, whatever it is that you're trying to get out of it. Thanks for trying out this two-parter today. Let me know in the comments how you enjoy these sort of like, I guess, two-part videos where I sort of explain a bit of what I look for in the pre-markets and taking into account the most recent previous price action in order to inform my intraday moves. If it's helpful or not, or if there's a better way to structure it, or if there's things that you'd be curious to have me do videos about that you haven't seen me do yet. Those things are all helpful. And please share these videos if you are inclined to. The sharing really, really goes a long way, and I appreciate it. Okay, everyone, I hope you have a good evening, and I will see you in the next video.